This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for this Thursday, October 29th. I'm George Thomas. Today, President Trump and Joe Biden both campaigning today in the same state, the key battleground of Florida, as both campaigns focus on getting their voters to show up for Election Day. Big tech leaders facing a tough grilling on Capitol Hill. The issue, censorship of conservatives, bigotry against Christians, and rising anti-Semitism against Jews. We'll hear why these two trends are on the rise during the pandemic. And President Trump's Platinum Plan to start new black-owned businesses and create jobs. How it could be a lifeline for many African Americans. Those stories and much more today on NewsWatch. But we begin with President Trump and former Vice President Biden, as both will be appearing not only in the same state, but in the same city today, Tampa, in the crucial battleground of Florida. Trump carried the state back in 2016 by just over a point. Polls are generally showing the race there to be extremely close. Campaigning in another battleground state, Wednesday, Arizona, the president blasted one poll that showed him far behind in still another key state, Wisconsin, even though almost all other polls show the race much closer than before.
This morning, I get a fake poll. So we're one up in a real poll, or even, or whatever, but we'll end up winning it. But I get a poll. ABC, Washington Post, they're fakes. Trump, 17 down in Wisconsin. 17. Think of it. And they tried it last time 4 years ago, too, and that didn't work out too well. It's just unbelievable how dishonest the media is. I say it because there they are, just very dishonest people. Very dishonest. The vote for me is a vote for massive middle-class tax cuts, regulation cuts, fair trade, strong borders, and American energy independence.
Both candidates are turning their focus to encouraging voters to turn out, as I mentioned, on Election Day. More than 73 million Americans have already voted, including absentee or mail-in voting, along with huge numbers of people showing up across the country to vote early in person. Although Democrats are generally more likely to vote earlier than Republicans, the Washington Post reports Republicans have been closing the gap in key states like Florida and North Carolina. But it is still too soon to know if the early voting will favor either party. Turning to our nation's capital, where leaders of three big tech companies were drilled on Capitol Hill Wednesday as they were questioned, testifying about potential censorship. Lawmakers asked whether Facebook, Twitter, and Google are playing partisan politics this close to the presidential election. CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips brings us that story.
Pressure couldn't be higher, nor the atmosphere more charged than it is right now. The catalyst, Twitter and Facebook, blocking or severely limiting access to a New York Post report on Hunter Biden because they deemed it to be questionable. Some lawmakers couldn't wait to haul them, along with Google, to Capitol Hill.
The three witnesses we have before this committee today collectively pose, I believe, the single greatest threat to free speech in America.
Republican Senator Ted Cruz lit into them, especially Twitter founder and CEO Jack Dorsey.
Mr. Dorsey, who the hell elected you and put you in charge of what the media are allowed to report and what the American people are allowed to hear? And why do you persist in behaving as a Democratic super PAC?
We're not doing that. And this is why I opened this hearing with calls for more transparency. We realize we need to earn trust more.
Just 2 weeks ago, Twitter blocked the New York Post from sharing reporting about a laptop and newly discovered emails that indicated Hunter Biden had set up a meeting between the head of a Ukraine gas company, where he was a board member, and his father, who was vice president at the time. Twitter also locked the New York Post's account, citing concerns that the paper may have been sharing hacked material.
Our team made a fast decision. The enforcement action, however, of blocking URLs, both in tweets and in DM, in direct messages, we believe was incorrect, and we changed it.
Republicans charging the companies don't treat everyone the same.
For example, when the president's tax returns were illegally leaked, neither company acted to restrict access.
Another big issue talked about was Section 230, a law that provides immunity from liability for providers that publish information by third-party users. The president calling for the law's repeal.
Section 230 is the most important law protecting internet speech. And removing Section 230 will remove speech from the internet.
Democrats arguing the mere fact that this hearing happened less than a week before the election makes it, quote, a sham.
What we are seeing today is an attempt to bully the CEOs of private companies into carrying out a hit job on a presidential candidate.
Each CEO was asked point blank if they consider themselves to be the referee for free speech in this country. Each one answered no. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Thank you, Eric. Tropical storm Zeta is heading northeast today after ripping through Louisiana and Mississippi. Zeta came ashore as a Category 2 hurricane, moving swiftly through New Orleans. As Heather Sells reports, Zeta brought fierce winds and storm surge.
Zeta hit Louisiana and Mississippi with a Category 2 punch, winds howling at 110 miles an hour. Today, forecasters warn of a storm surge up to 9 feet in Mississippi and Alabama. Overnight, nearly 1 million power outages across the region, and authorities blame the storm for at least one death.
This is not a drill. We've had many of them. It's not a drill. We do expect directly impacting the city of New Orleans. There is confidence all around that aspect.
In Louisiana, there is widespread damage, like this batting cage, now a twisted mess. In New Orleans, more than 200 trees are down.
There was about a window of about 10 minutes, 15 minutes where it was really intense. And the tree just cracked and went over, and it clipped the corner of my house into my daughter's bedroom, and then it landed on top of the car.
Pictures show 3 breaches in a Jefferson Parish levee.
Prepare for collision, bro.
And a barge breaking loose from its moorings.
Man, we are so lucky.
In Chalmette, winds ripped apart homes and roofs. And in Golden Meadow, the winds pushed this boat ashore, leaving it floating on a roadway. Further east in Biloxi, floodwaters engulfed a casino parking garage, leaving cars bobbing like bath toys. Today, Louisiana Governor Bell Edwards is warning people to help each other, but with masks on. CBN's Operation Blessing is ready to serve. The ministry has been on the ground in Louisiana since Operation Laura struck in August. Meanwhile, the fast-moving Zeta is barreling northeast and has now weakened to a tropical storm. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Some pretty dramatic pictures there. New Justice Amy Coney Barrett will hear her first Supreme Court religious liberty case a week from today. It involves a Catholic foster care agency barred from caring for children because it wouldn't place them with same-sex married couples, rather. Paul Strand has that story.
Philadelphia's government says no one can discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation. Catholic Social Services holds a biblically based belief that marriage can only be between a man and a woman. It hadn't actually turned away any gay couples who wanted to foster, but just that belief about marriage alone got it booted out of the foster care business with Philadelphia. Beckett is fighting for Catholic Social Services, calling this a violation of the agency's religious liberty.
This is a really landmark case for religious liberty. It's about the power of the government, whether the government can force you to change what you believe when you're trying to be a part of the solution, when you're trying to identify a social ill and really be there to make a difference.
Philadelphia's tossing out Catholic Social Services had an immediate negative impact.
The day after this policy was put in place, the city of Philadelphia said that there were 300 homes that were needed for these children.
One of the foster moms in this case says Catholic Social Services could have helped many of those children who went unfostered.
Our communities are negatively affected. We have more crime. It's just an extremely vicious, nonstop, growing cycle of devastation.
Alvarado says government can't just order people of faith to change their religious beliefs.
A lot of people don't realize that religious beliefs are not like policies. Religious beliefs are things that come from the foundational teachings of a religion. They are very, very old.
So you can't just swap them out for what government says you should believe. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, bigotry, against evangelical Christians and rising levels of anti-Semitism against Jews. Those are just two of the consequences of the pandemic here in the U.S. We will hear from a Christian and Jewish leader about both of these concerns when we come back. Stay with us, folks.
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Welcome back to the broadcast. The COVID pandemic has certainly brought hardships to many Americans, including people of faith. Evangelicals have seen an increase in anti-Christian bigotry, while Jews have experienced rising anti-Semitism. Reverend Johnny Moore and Rabbi Abraham Cooper share their concerns about these problems on this week's episode of The Global Lane. Rabbi Cooper describes the treatment of New York's Orthodox Jewish community during the pandemic as, quote, deeply distressing.
It's a situation that in many ways has spiraled out of control because of a failure of leadership. Before COVID, we already had a spike in violent anti-Semitic crimes in the New York area, the area that has the largest number of American Jews. Shocking attacks, and then came the virus and everything else that we've been dealing with. When I say failure of leadership, let me be perfectly blunt. It's from the top of the political leadership, of not showing sensitivity, especially to Orthodox Jews, around the fact that their synagogues and schools are central to their lives. But it's also, frankly, a failure of leadership of elements of the leaders of the Orthodox community, meaning we don't need, I live in LA, we don't need a governor or a mayor to say, put on a mask or make sure you're socially distant. A fundamental of Jewish law is if your life is in danger, or if, God forbid, you could even coincidentally maybe put someone else's life in danger, take the necessary steps to do so. We all need to do more. But on the other hand, for the governor and the mayor and other leaders in New York to talk about the power of Orthodox Jews and to take particular and sometimes singular focus only on a particular faith community is deeply distressing. And so in that sense, we don't really have I think, to point to leaders who've gotten this right. And at the same time, the Wiesenthal Center has spoken out when Christian churches have been targeted during the course of the riots that are associated in the aftermath of what happened in Minneapolis, the murder of an innocent man by a policeman.
How concerned are you, Johnny, by the continued erosion of religious liberty right here in the USA during and even possibly to come after the pandemic?
Well, you expect these things from an obscure professor at some university, but when the New York Times, barely into the pandemic, runs a headline that says the road to coronavirus hell was paved by evangelicals, I don't care how you cut it. That's just bigotry. It is absolute bigotry. And the fact of the matter is that the evangelical church at the height of the pandemic not only was shutting down the churches and moving online and taking appropriate measures, but was in fact disseminating information to millions and millions of people. Evangelicals were getting more information than the media itself to our communities of millions. You know, but this is really simple. In the United States of America, it is appropriate at certain points, as in many, many months ago, to restrict freedom for the public good, but you have to do it equitably. Probably the most glaring example was in Nevada, where you could have a casino at 50% capacity, but you couldn't have more than 50 people in a church. And this is why it is so incredibly important that we build these broad coalitions to say, you can have your political fights all you want. We celebrate it in the United States of America. We love the marketplace of ideas. But when you touch the First Amendment, we're all coming out in force to vote. And we are never, ever going to let it go. And you let it go by 1 inch, and it's not long before you've given a mile.
Well, after reading your book, I think the takeaway for me was speak up, be a voice. Don't just sit and be silent about what is happening, whether it be in Nigeria or right here in the USA. Okay, the book is The Next Jihad, Stop the Christian Genocide in Africa. The Reverend Johnny Moore, Rabbi Abraham Cooper, thank you both for sharing your time and insights today.
You can also see Reverend Moore and Rabbi Cooper discuss genocide in Nigeria on the Global Lane tonight at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Still ahead, President Trump laying out a strategy to empower African Americans, including creating hundreds of thousands of new black-owned businesses, along with 3 million new jobs. We'll bring you that look at the president's, what he's calling the Platinum Plan, right after this.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Folks, welcome back to CBN News. The Platinum Plan, that's what President Trump is calling his new strategy for empowering Black Americans. It includes the creation of 3 million jobs for the Black community and 500,000 Black-owned businesses. Charlene Aaron brings us this look at the plan that could provide a lifeline for many African Americans.
This Platinum Plan commits $500 billion to inner city areas to create a new era of prosperity and close the wealth gap in Black communities. President Trump pitching the plan recently in Atlanta.
And I'm here today to announce a brand new plan to deliver more opportunity, more security, more fairness, and more prosperity to Black communities. We call it the Platinum Plan. Platinum Plan. And that's a contract with Black Americans, and it's going to be something that people talk about for a long time to come.
Georgia small business owner Bruce Lavelle, who also heads the President's Diversity Coalition, says he was overcome with emotion as he heard details of the plan.
I was just choked up because never in my life have I seen a president that is like, this is real stuff here. This is real meat.
California GOP congressional candidate Joe Collins, also in attendance, applauds the move.
I was really impressed. I was really surprised because I've never seen an agenda for the Black community like I've seen this president lay out before. And I look forward to this economic improvement. I'm telling you, the inner cities need it, but we also need to vote for people who want to see us do better instead of voting for our comfortability.
It comes at a time when America's wealth gap between whites and Blacks remains substantial. In 2019, the typical white family had an approximate net worth of $188,200. Compare that to $24,100 for Black families. Plus, about 46% of white families own their own home, compared to 17% of Black families. The president promises over the next 4 years, his administration will improve those numbers by creating 3 million jobs for the Black community, 500,000 Black-owned businesses, while increasing homeownership opportunities and providing access to better education and higher policing standards.
And this is a tremendous, tremendous boost for, as I say, the underserved communities across this great nation, you know, from California to New York to Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. And this is a great, great way to spur growth in a lot of our communities. It's been, honestly, Charlene, left behind.
Touting his accomplishments, such as historically low unemployment and prison reform, the president argues that Democrats have taken African American voters for granted.
They made you big promises before every election. And then the moment they got to Washington, they abandoned you and they sold you out. The Democrat Party used you and they lied to you every single time. You know it better than anybody else knows it.
In 2016, the president received just 8% of the Black vote. And a recent Washington Post ABC News poll found Black voters heavily favor Joe Biden over Trump 88 to 9%. Lavelle says it's time for Blacks to seriously consider what Trump has to offer.
Take a look around you and ask yourself, do you like your roads? Do you like your schools? Do you like everything around you? And I think it was fair to ask, well, if the answer is no, then let's try it this way. Don't get caught up in the emotions. Pay attention to the numbers.
He admits it's a tough sell, considering the hostility and division in today's political climate.
There's only a handful of courageous, crazy people like me that actually go out on national stage and talk about it because of the fear of the cancel culture. It's very divisive and it's very aggressive towards anything that interrupts or disturbs, watch this, the quote, pay-to-play establishment.
Yet Lavelle is hopeful the election results will prove the polls wrong.
I see it in the high teens, maybe low 20s.
To further woo Black voters, the president's plan also includes a proposal to make Juneteenth, the day African Americans mark the end of slavery in the U.S., a federal holiday. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Coming up, the first nest of the murder hornets found in the U.S. has been taken down. We'll show you how it happened and explain why the insects pose such a threat. When we come back, stay with us, folks.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
The CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.
Welcome back. Workers from the state of Washington's Department of Agriculture were able to destroy the first nest of so-called murder hornets discovered here in the U.S. without suffering any stings or other injuries. Wow, those are huge. The nest had been a concern for quite some time because the Asian giant hornets are large, as you can see, and their sting can be deadly, especially if someone is stung numerous times. The hornets also pose a huge threat to honeybees that pollinate many crops. Scientists recovered 98 hornets from the nest, including 13 that were captured alive in a net. The nest high up in a tree was sealed with foam and shrink-wrapped, and the remaining hornets inside died. The operation, which took place Saturday, is only the start of the efforts to prevent the hornet from gaining a foothold in the Pacific Northwest. Well, folks, that's it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here by emailing newswatch@cbn.com, or you can reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. From all of us here from the headquarters of the Christian Broadcasting Network in Virginia Beach, Virginia, have a great day. Goodbye. God bless you.